The smoke rises from the burning buildings of Colony Epsilon 7, like black fingers, reaching toward the alien ships above. Queen Nara stands on her command deck, watching the final moments of another human world fall to her forces. Her silver armor reflects the orange glow of the fires below, and her 6 eyes scan the destruction with cold satisfaction. This is how it always ends. The humans fight, they lose, they die. But something is different today. Down in the colony's main street, where the evacuation ships were supposed to launch, one human soldier refuses to run. Corporal Kim Jinho crouches behind an overturned hovercar, his standard-issue rifle spitting plasma bolts at anything that moves. Around him lie the bodies of his squad mates, but he keeps fighting. The evacuation convoy disappeared into the sky 20 minutes ago, yet he remains. Nara leans forward, intrigued. Her tactical display shows over 300 Cytherian warriors surrounding this single human, yet none can advance past his position. Every time her soldiers try to rush him, precise shots drop them before they can close the distance. His ammunition should have run out 10 minutes ago, but somehow he keeps finding fresh power cells from fallen comrades. "My queen," says Commander Vara, her voice a mechanical buzz through the translation device. "Shall we simply vaporize the position?" Nara raises one clawed hand. "Wait." She watches as Jinho rolls from cover to cover, his movements desperate but calculated. A plasma blast scorches the ground inches from his head, but he doesn't flinch. Instead, he fires back with steady hands, dropping another of her warriors. There's something in his face that she's never seen before in any species they've conquered. Not just fear or anger, but something deeper. He's buying time, Nara realizes aloud. But for what? The evacuation is complete. Through her enhanced vision, she sees Jinho pull out a small device, his fingers flying over its surface. A communication pad. He's calling someone, even as energy bolts flash around him. She enhances the audio pickup and catches fragments of his transmission. "Can I tell my wife I kept my promise? Minji, if you can hear this, the children got out safe in all of them." Nara's mandibles click in confusion. The evacuation ships left with standard colony personnel. Why does this soldier speak of children? As if they were his own responsibility. In Cytherian society, warriors protect only their direct genetic line. The concept of dying for unrelated offspring makes no tactical sense. Jinho's rifle finally runs dry. He tosses it aside and draws a sidearm, his movements slower now. Blood seeps from wounds in his shoulder and leg, but his aim remains true. He's been fighting for over an hour against impossible odds, and somehow he's still standing. "Fascinating," Nara whispers. Commander Vara shifts impatiently. "My queen, this delay serves no purpose. One human cannot threaten our forces." But Nara sees something else in her tactical display. The evacuation ships have reached the edge of the system, beyond the range of her interceptors. Every minute this human delayed them meant dozens of civilian transports escaped safely. He traded his life for theirs, knowing he would never see the results of his sacrifice. Jinho stumbles, his strength finally failing. He falls to one knee behind the makeshift barricade, his weapon wavering. Nara's warriors close in, sensing victory. But even now, bleeding and surrounded, the human doesn't surrender. He raises his sidearm one final time. The energy blast from a Cytherian stun weapon drops him unconscious. "Bring him to me," Nara commands, surprising her own officers. "Alive and unharmed?" "My queen," Vara questions. Nara studies the unconscious human as her soldiers carry him toward the transport beam. "I want to understand what drives a creature to fight so desperately for others. This behavior defies all logic, as you..." The transport beam engulfs them both. Nara finds herself genuinely curious for the first time in decades. What she discovers about this human might change everything she thought she knew about strength, sacrifice, and what it truly means to be powerful. The medical bay of Queen Nara's flagship hums with alien technology. Crystalline restraints hold. Jinho's arms and legs, their blue glow pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The human's eyes flutter open, adjusting to the strange purple lighting that fills the chamber. His body aches from the battle, dried blood caking his uniform, but his mind remains sharp. Nara enters the room with measured steps, her towering form casting long shadows across the polished floor. She stands nearly 8 feet tall, her silver exoskeleton reflecting the room's eerie light. 6 compound eyes study him with scientific curiosity, like a researcher examining an unusual specimen. "You are awake," she says, her voice carrying through a translation device that makes her words sound oddly musical. "Good. We have much to discuss." Jinho tests his restraints once, then looks directly at her. No trembling, no begging, just calm. Her assessment. This surprises Nara. Most species grovel by now, offering information in exchange for mercy. The humans she's interrogated before always broke within the first hour. "I'm Corporal Kim Jinho, service number 7749 Alpha," he states clearly. "That's all you're getting from me." Nara tilts her head, genuinely puzzled. "You misunderstand your situation, human. I am Queen Nara of the Catherian Empire. Your colony is ash. Your people are dead or scattered. You have nothing left to protect." "Then, why am I still alive?" Jinho asks. The question catches her off guard. In truth, she's not entirely sure herself. Standard protocol demands immediate execution of enemy combatants, but something about his desperate last stand fascinated her analytical mind. "You fought for 3 hours against 300 of my warriors," she says, circling his restraint chair. "This defies all probability calculations. I want to understand your motivation." "You wouldn't understand. Try me." Jinho looks at her for a long moment, then speaks quietly. "Those evacuation ships carried 412 people. Families mostly. Kids who just wanted to go home to their grandparents on Earth. Teachers, doctors, farmers, good people who never hurt anyone." Nara's mandibles click impatiently. And they deserved a chance to live. But they were not your offspring, not your genetic line. Why sacrifice yourself for unrelated individuals? The question seems to genuinely confuse Jinho. He stares at her as if she'd asked why water flows downhill. Because it was the right thing to do. Nara activates a pain inducer, sending jolts of electricity through the restraints. Jinho's body convulses, but he doesn't cry out. When the current stops, he's breathing heavily, but his eyes remain defiant. "Tell me about your military installations on Earth," she demands. "My wife Minji teaches kindergarten," Jinho says instead, his voice strained but steady. "She has this way of getting the shy kids to open up. Makes them feel safe, you know. She'd love those children from the colony. Would probably adopt half of them if she could." Another burst of pain. This time Jinho grunts but still doesn't break. "Your weapon manufacturing facilities," Nara presses. "We were trying to have a baby," Jinho continues, sweat beading on his forehead. 3 years of hoping. The doctors say it might happen, might not. But Minji, she never gives up hope. Says some things are worth waiting for. Nara finds herself listening despite her intentions. In Catherian society, reproduction is a clinical process, carefully controlled for genetic optimization. This human speaks of offspring creation as if it involves emotions, desires, uncertainty. The concept disturbs her ordered thinking. "These attachments make you weak," she states. Jinho actually smiles through his pain. "No, they made me strong enough to hold that position for 3 hours. Strong enough to make sure those kids got home safe." For the first time in her long life, Queen Nara encounters something that doesn't fit her understanding of the universe. This human should be broken by now, begging for mercy. Instead, he speaks of love and sacrifice, as if they were sources of power rather than weakness. She deactivates the pain inducer and steps back, her 6 eyes studying him with new interest. The neural scanning chamber feels like stepping inside a living crystal. Thin silver wires snake from the walls, each one pulsing with soft blue light as they attach to Jinho's temples. Queen Nara watches from behind a protective barrier, her 6 eyes focused on the holographic display, showing his brain activity. "Begin the deep scan," she commands her chief scientist, Dr. Keth. The machine hums to life, sending microscopic probes into Jinho's mind. On the display, his neural patterns appear as flowing rivers of light, each thought creating ripples of color across the 3-dimensional map. Nara has seen this process hundreds of times with other species. First comes the terror response, bright red spikes of panic. Then the breakdown, as mental defenses crumble under alien intrusion. Finally, submission. The mind goes dark, ready to surrender any information. But Jinho's brain does something completely different. As the probes push deeper, his neural pathways light up like a city at night. Where the scanning beams try to force their way through his memories, new connections form instantly, rerouting around the intrusion. It's like watching a river flow, around rocks finding new paths instead of breaking against obstacles. Impossible, Dr. Keth whispers, his clawed fingers dancing over the control panel. The human's consciousness is adapting in real time. Nara leans closer to the display. In the detention chair, Jinho's body trembles from the neural intrusion, sweat covering his face, but his eyes remain alert. Most subjects are unconscious by now, their minds overwhelmed by the foreign presence. He's somehow staying awake through the entire process. Increase the probe intensity, she orders. The scanning beams grow brighter, pushing harder against Jinho's mental defenses. His brain responds by creating even more new pathways, like a garden growing faster under pressure. Instead of breaking down, he's actually getting stronger. Through the neural link, fragments of his memories flash on the monitor. Nara sees glimpses of a classroom filled with young human children, their faces bright with curiosity. She watches. Jinho kneel beside a crying child, patiently helping him sound out words in a picture book. The memory is so vivid she can almost smell the crayons and hear the children's laughter. He's a teacher, Dr. Keth reports, reading the data streams. His primary occupation involves educating offspring that are not genetically related to him. That makes no sense, Nara says. Why would he invest energy in developing minds that provide no evolutionary advantage to his bloodline? More memories surface. Jinho staying after school to help a struggling student with math problems. Jinho buying lunch for a child whose family couldn't afford it. Jinho defending a quiet girl from bullies, then teaching both the victim and the aggressors about kindness. Each memory shows him pouring his time, energy, and resources into children who share no genetic connection with him. Look at his neural response patterns, Dr. Keth says, pointing to cascading waves of gold and silver on the display. These are the same chemicals his species produces when caring for their own offspring, but he generates them for any young human in his care. Nara studies the data, trying to understand. Fancatherian society. Adults nurture only their direct genetic descendants. Resources are carefully allocated based on bloodline proximity. The idea of treating unrelated children as if they were family offspring defies every logical principle. Her species has developed over millennia. His pain tolerance is also increasing, Dr. Keith notes. Each time we intensify the neural probe, his brain builds stronger defenses. It's as if suffering is somehow making him more resilient. On the monitor, another memory plays. Jinho grading papers late at night, exhausted but smiling as he writes encouraging notes on each assignment. Great improvement, Sunho, he writes, on one. Keep trying, Yuna, you're getting closer, on another. Even in his fatigue, he finds individual words of hope for each child. The neural probe pushes into deeper memories, seeking military secrets. Instead, it finds more classroom scenes. Jinho reading stories to children during lunch break. Jinho organizing a school garden where students learn to grow vegetables. Jinho staying late to tutor kids whose parents work double shifts. He spent more neural energy on unrelated offspring than most species invest in their own bloodlines, Dr. Keth observes. This behavior should have been eliminated by natural selection. But as Nara watches the golden patterns of care and protection flowing through Jinho's mind, she begins to suspect something troubling. What if these seemingly wasteful emotional attachments aren't weaknesses at all? What if they're actually the source of the impossible strength he showed during the battle? The human's eyes suddenly focus directly on her through the observation window, as if he can sense her presence, despite the neural intrusion clouding his senses. The children, he whispers through cracked lips, did they make it to Earth safely? Even. Now, with alien technology boring into his mind, his first concern remains the same. Not his own survival, not military intelligence, but the welfare of young humans he'll never see again. For the first time in her long reign, Queen Nara feels something she doesn't recognize, a strange uncertainty about everything she thought. She knew about strength and weakness. Queen Nara finds herself returning to the detention chamber more often than necessary. What started as standard interrogation sessions has turned into something else entirely. Jinho no longer tries to resist her questions about human military capabilities. Instead, he talks about people. You want to understand humans, Jinho says, leaning back in his restraint chair. The neural probes have been disconnected today. They've proven useless anyway. Let me tell you about Li Sujin. Nara settles into her observation position, telling herself this is still intelligence gathering. But she's genuinely curious now, though she won't admit it. Sujin was a combat medic during the Proxima Border War, Jinho begins. Barely 5 feet tall, couldn't hurt a fly if she tried. But when the shooting started, she'd run straight into enemy fire to reach wounded soldiers. Protecting her own troops makes tactical sense, Nara interrupts. That's just it. She didn't just save our people. During the Battle of Kepler Station, she crawled across no man's land to treat enemy soldiers who were bleeding out, spent her own medical supplies on them. Her commanding officer ordered her to stop. Nara's mandibles click in confusion. And she obeyed? She told him to court-martial her if he wanted, but she wasn't going to watch anyone die when she could help them. Jinho's eyes grow distant with memory. The enemy soldiers she saved, they started laying down their weapons. Word spread through their ranks that humans would risk their lives to heal enemies. By the end of the battle, half their army had surrendered. One medic changed the course of a battle through illogical compassion. Nara finds this difficult to process. Sujin died 3 days later, treating wounded prisoners during an artillery bombardment. Could have been safe in the bunker, but she stayed in the medical tent because her patients couldn't be moved. Jinho looks directly at Nara. The war ended 2 weeks after that. Both sides agreed to a ceasefire, partially because of what she did. Nara has studied thousands of military conflicts across the galaxy. Victory always goes to the side with superior tactics, technology, or numbers. The idea that showing mercy to enemies could become a weapon defies everything in her strategic databases. Tell me about this Park Hyunwoo, she says, accessing the name from his previous neural scans. Jinho's face brightens. Now there's a story. Hyunwoo owned a small farm outside Seoul. Nothing fancy, just enough to feed his family and sell a little extra at the market. Then the refugee crisis hit. Which crisis? When the Centauri colonies fell to the Zephyrian Empire, millions of humans fled back to Earth. Most had nothing but the clothes on their backs. The government tried to help, but there were just too many people, not enough resources. Nara remembers the Zephyrian conquest. Efficient and brutal, exactly how warfare should be conducted. She'd studied their methods for potential adaptation. Hyunwoo saw families sleeping in the streets, Jinho continues. Kids going hungry, so he started giving away his crops for free. Not just the extra vegetables, everything. His entire harvest gone to refugees. That's economic suicide. How did his family survive? They didn't. Not well anyway. Hyunwoo sold his farm equipment to buy more seeds, sold his house to rent land from neighbors. His wife started working 3 jobs. Their own children wore second-hand clothes and ate simple meals, so refugee kids could have full bellies. Nara calculates quickly. He reduced his family's survival probability to improve the chances of genetically unrelated individuals. This violates basic evolutionary principles. Maybe, but it worked. Hyunwoo's example inspired other farmers, then merchants, then factory owners. Within 6 months, an entire network of humans was sacrificing personal resources for strangers. The refugee crisis turned into the greatest humanitarian success in Earth's history. And Park Hyunwoo died of exhaustion 2 years later. Worked himself to death feeding other people's children. Jinho pauses. At his funeral, over 10,000 refugees showed up to pay respects. People he'd never met, whose lives he'd saved through his sacrifice. Nara processes this information, trying to fit it into her understanding of rational behavior. The Cytherian Empire conquered worlds through calculated aggression and efficient resource allocation. They eliminated waste, weakness, and inefficiency from their society millennia ago. Yet here are examples of humans becoming stronger through apparent weakness. Your species consistently chooses growth over safety, she observes. You embrace uncertainty, change, suffering. Why? Jinho thinks for a moment. Because that's how we become more than what we were. Every challenge, every loss, every sacrifice teaches us something new. We don't just survive, we evolve. Evolution. Through suffering is inefficient. My people perfected themselves long ago. Perfected? Jinho raises an eyebrow. Or just stopped growing? The question hits Nara like a physical blow. She's never considered that the Kytherian Empire's greatest achievement, eliminating all weakness and unpredictability from their species, might actually be a limitation. They haven't changed in thousands of years because they no longer need to change. But humans change constantly, adapting, learning, becoming something new with each generation. As she leaves the detention chamber, Nara finds herself questioning everything she thought she knew about strength. Her species conquered worlds through superior force, but humans might be conquering something far more valuable, the ability to become unlimited by their current limitations. The thought terrifies and fascinates her in equal measure. The explosion rocks Queen Nara's flagship at 0347 hours ship time. Emergency alarms shriek through the corridors as human assault ships breach the outer defense grid. Nara rushes to the command center, her silver armor clanking against the metal floor. On the tactical display, she sees 3 human vessels firing everything they have at her massive dreadnought. Impossible, Commander Vara hisses. How did they find us in deep space? The prisoner, Nara realizes. They're here for him. In the detention level, Jinho hears the familiar sound of human plasma cannons. His heart pounds with hope, but he knows the rescue mission is doomed. 3 small ships against a Kytherian battle fleet. It's suicide. Still, the fact that they came for him fills him with pride. The ship shudders as another volley hits the shields. Emergency lighting casts red shadows across his cell. Through the chaos, he hears running footsteps approaching. 2 human marines in dark combat armor burst through the detention door, their weapons raised. "Corporal Kim," the lead marine shouts. "We're getting you out of here." "Wait," Jinho calls as they rush to free his restraints. "I need 30 seconds at that console." "Sir, we don't have 30 seconds. Trust me." Jinho breaks free and lunges toward the detention cell's control panel. His fingers fly across the alien interface, accessing the connection port he's been studying for weeks. From his boot, he pulls out a tiny data chip, something the Kytherians missed during his capture. "What are you doing?" the Marine demands as weapon fire echoes through the corridors. "Planting seeds," Jinho says, inserting the chip into the system. Every human ship carries cultural archives, emergency protocol in case Earth falls, music, art, literature, history, everything that makes us who we are. The upload begins. Thousands of files stream into the ship's main computer network. The Kytherian systems, designed for efficiency rather than security, accept the data without question. Within seconds, the information spreads through the ship's internal networks like water through cracks in stone. "Got it." Jinho yanks out the chip. "Now let's go." They don't make it 50 meters before Kytherian security forces surround them. The human marines fight bravely, but alien stun weapons drop them within minutes. Jinho finds himself back in restraints, facing Queen Nara's furious 6-eyed stare. "What did you do?" she demands. "Nothing that will hurt your ship," Jinho says honestly. "Just shared some files, but the files are already working their way through the fleet's communication grid. On battle cruiser Zeth 7, Lieutenant Cax is monitoring communications when a strange audio file begins playing through his headset. It's music, unlike anything in the Kytherian database. A human woman named Cho Yonsu sings about love lost and found, her voice carrying emotions that Cax's species eliminated from their psyche millennia ago. The lieutenant finds himself listening to the entire song. Then another. Soon he's accessing poetry by someone called Kang Minsu, reading words about hope existing in darkness, about beauty growing from pain. These concepts should be meaningless to his logical mind, but something deep inside responds to them. On transport ship Vel 12, Engineer Thex discovers video files showing humans during their daily lives. He watches Han Ji-won, an ordinary factory worker, use her lunch money to buy food for a homeless stranger. The recording shows her going hungry for the rest of the day, but smiling as she watches the man eat. Why would she reduce her own nutrition? For an unrelated individual? Thex wonders aloud. But as he watches more files, he begins to understand. The humans in these recordings aren't acting from logic or genetic programming. They're choosing to help others because it feels right. They're creating art not for survival advantage, but because beauty itself has value. They're expressing love, knowing it makes them vulnerable. Throughout the fleet, Cytherian soldiers experience something their species hasn't felt in thousands of years: curiosity about being different than what they are. The cultural files show humans laughing at their own mistakes, crying for strangers' pain, celebrating each other's successes. Every emotion, every choice, every moment of humanity spreads through alien minds like sunrise breaking through eternal night. Command reports begin flooding in. Soldiers abandoning posts to discuss human poetry, engineers neglecting repairs to listen to human music, pilots questioning orders for the first time in their military careers. The perfect efficiency of the Cytherian war machine starts developing glitches as individual consciousness awakens. Queen Nara stares at her fleet status displays in horror. Her perfectly ordered military force is experiencing something unprecedented. Independent thought. The human cultural virus isn't destroying her ship's systems. It's doing something far more dangerous. It's teaching her people to dream. The War Council chamber buzzes with tension as Queen Nara's most trusted commanders gather around the holographic tactical display. Red warning lights pulse across fleet. Status reports, showing efficiency ratings dropping across every ship in the armada. Commander Vara stands at attention, her silver exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights, but her usual perfect composure shows cracks of frustration. "My queen," Vara begins, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "The human contamination has spread to 47% of our fleet personnel. Productivity has fallen by 32%. We must act immediately." General Koth steps forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the war table. "I have reports of soldiers abandoning their posts to engage in what they call discussions. They're questioning direct orders, asking why, instead of simply obeying. This behavior threatens the entire command structure." Nara studies the data, streams flowing across her display. Each report tells the same story. Cytherian warriors experiencing emotions their species hasn't felt in millennia. On battlecruiser Zeth-7, an entire squad refused to execute prisoners after listening to human music about forgiveness. On transport ship Vel-12, engineers have been sharing their rations with captive humans, claiming it feels right. "Show me the specific incidents," Nara commands. Admiral Zex activates a communication feed from the detention levels. On screen, a Cytherian guard named Thrix sits outside a cell containing human prisoners. Instead of maintaining professional distance, he's listening intently as they tell stories about their families back on Earth. Tears, actual tears, stream down his alien face as he hears about a human father teaching his daughter to ride a bicycle. "Disgraceful," Vara spits. "Thrix has served with distinction for 43 years. Now look at him, weakened by human emotional poison." But Nara finds herself studying Thrix's expression. For the first time in his military career, he looks truly alive. His 6 compound eyes shine with something she's never seen in any Cytherian: genuine curiosity about another being's experience. "What does he report about his new emotional state?" she asks. General Koth consults his datapad. He claims to feel more connected to his purpose, says understanding the prisoner's perspectives makes him a better soldier, not worse. Complete nonsense, of course. Another feed shows Engineer Kess from the technical division. She's supposed to be running diagnostics on weapon systems, but instead she's reading human poetry on her console. As the words scroll past, her productivity monitors show something unexpected. Her problem-solving capabilities have actually increased by 15%. The contamination is making some personnel more effective, not less, Nara observes. "Temporary." "Anomaly," Vara insists. "My queen, we must initiate Protocol 7 immediately. Complete neural purging of all affected personnel. We can restore them to proper Cytherian thinking within 12 hours. Nara knows Protocol 7 well. It's a brutal process that wipes clean any unauthorized thoughts or emotions, returning soldiers to their original programming. Efficient, practical, proven. Everything Cytherian society values. The purge will also eliminate their enhanced problem-solving abilities, she points out. Better mindless efficiency than contaminated innovation, General Koth declares. Our ancestors eliminated these emotional weaknesses for good reason. They make us unpredictable, irrational, vulnerable. But as Nara watches more feeds from across the fleet, she sees Cytherian soldiers discovering capabilities they never knew they possessed. A communications officer creates a more efficient data routing system after being inspired by human music. A pilot develops better evasive maneuvers after reading human poetry about dancing with danger. A medic saves 3 lives using techniques inspired by human stories about healing. Commander Vara, Nara says carefully, what if these emotions aren't weaknesses? What if they're tools we've been missing? The silence in the War Council chamber becomes deafening. Vara's mandibles click rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in Cytherian physiology. My queen, you cannot be serious. Our empire conquered half the galaxy through perfect discipline and logical thinking. Human emotions are chaos. They lead to unpredictable decisions, wasted resources, tactical errors. They also lead to Lieutenant Cax discovering a new shield modulation frequency that increases our defensive capabilities by 20%, Nara counters reading from her reports, and Engineer Thex developing a propulsion modification that makes our ships 12% faster. Coincidences, General Koth insists. The contamination will ultimately weaken us. But Nara is beginning to suspect something revolutionary. Her species achieved perfection by eliminating all uncertainty, all growth, all change. They became the ultimate warriors by removing everything that made them evolve. But humans grow stronger through their emotional chaos, their unpredictability, their willingness to sacrifice logic for hope. Delay the neural purge, she commands. My queen, Vara protests. Every moment we wait, more personnel become contaminated. Soon we may lose the ability to restore order at all. That's what concerns me, Nara says quietly. What if order isn't the same thing as strength? The War Council erupts in shocked murmurs. For the first time in Cytherian military history, their queen is questioning the fundamental principles of their civilization. And deep in the detention levels, Corporal Kim Jinho continues sharing human stories with any Cytherian willing to listen, not knowing that his words are slowly dismantling an empire built on the absence of hope. The alarm klaxons pierce through, Queen Nara's flagship like screaming metal. On her command bridge, red emergency lights bathe everything in the color of blood as her tactical display shows the unthinkable. Half her own fleet has turned their weapons on her. Battlecruiser Zeth 7 has locked targeting systems on our position, reports her communications officer, his voice shaking with disbelief. Admiral Zex is demanding your immediate surrender. Nara stares at the display, watching ships that have served her for decades now pointing their cannons at her throne ship. Each vessel represents thousands of Cytherian warriors who have chosen rebellion over absolute obedience. In her species' 10,000-year history, this has never happened before. How many ships remain loyal, she asks, though she dreads the answer. 43%, my queen. The rest have either joined the rebellion or gone silent. Commander Vara storms onto the bridge, her silver armor scorched from fighting in the lower decks. My queen, we have internal mutiny as well. 3 entire battalions have barricaded themselves in the cultural archive sectors. They're reading human files and refusing orders. Through the ship's internal cameras, Nara watches her own soldiers, sitting in circles, sharing human stories like children around a campfire. Some weep as they listen to recordings of human parents singing lullabies to their children. Others debate the meaning of human poetry, their minds grappling with concepts like beauty, sacrifice, and hope. They've lost their minds, Vara snarls. This is what happens when we allow emotional contamination to spread unchecked. But Nara sees something else in those images. Her soldiers aren't mindless. They're more thoughtful than they've ever been. They're asking questions, making choices, becoming individuals instead of identical cogs in a war machine. The problem is that individuals can choose to disobey. Incoming transmission from Admiral Zex, the communications officer announces. The main screen flickers to life, showing Admiral Zex standing on his command bridge. But he looks different somehow, his posture less rigid, his 6 eyes showing something Nara has never seen in a Cytherian military officer, doubt mixed with determination. "My queen," Zex begins, his voice formal but strained. "I formally request that you end this war against the humans and submit to a military tribunal." "On what grounds?" Nara demands. "On the grounds that everything we've been taught about strength is wrong." Zex gestures to someone off-screen. "I've been listening to the human prisoners' stories, learning about their history. Did you know that their greatest victories came not from conquest, but from choosing to help their enemies? Admiral, you are clearly compromised by the human contamination. Report for immediate neural purging." "No, my queen, I won't be returning to ignorance." Zex's voice grows stronger. "The humans showed us something we lost millennia ago, the ability to grow beyond what we are. We've been perfect, static, unchanging for so long that we forgot how to evolve." More screens activate around the bridge as other rebellious ship commanders join the transmission. Captain Thane from Heavy Cruiser Vel 9, Colonel Kess from Transport Division 7, dozens of officers Nara has known for decades. Each face shows the same transformation, the awakening of individual thought. "You're making a mistake," Nara says, though her voice lacks conviction. "Unity is our strength. Absolute obedience is what built our empire." "Built it, yes," Admiral Zex replies, "but also trapped it. We haven't learned anything new in 1,000 years because we're afraid of being wrong, afraid of changing, afraid of being less than perfect." In the detention levels, Corporal Kim Jinho lies barely conscious in his restraint chair. Weeks of interrogation have left him gaunt and weak, his body pushed far beyond normal human limits. But his eyes remain clear, and when young Cytherian soldiers sneak down to listen to his stories, he finds the strength to speak. "The thing about being human," he whispers to a group of alien warriors gathered around his cell, "is that we're allowed to fail. Expected to, even. Every mistake teaches us something new." Lieutenant Cax, one of his regular listeners, asks quietly, "But doesn't failure make you weak?" Jinho manages a smile despite his exhaustion. "My grandmother used to say that falling down isn't failing. Staying down is. We get back up, we learn, we try again. That's how we grow stronger." The Cytherian soldiers exchange glances. Their entire society is built around never falling down in the first place, never making mistakes, never showing weakness, but watching Jinho endure torture while still caring about their well-being, still teaching them about hope and resilience. They're beginning to understand that human weakness might actually be a kind of strength their perfect species never developed. Back on the bridge, Queen Nara realizes the horrible truth. Her species' greatest achievement, eliminating all uncertainty and weakness from their society, has become their fatal flaw. They're so perfectly adapted to their current form that they cannot change, cannot grow, cannot evolve beyond what they've always been. The humans, chaotic and imperfect and contradictory, possess the one thing the Cytherians lost long ago, the ability to become something greater than they currently are. "My queen," Commander Vara whispers urgently, "we can still win this. Launch the quantum scrubbers, wipe all human contamination from the fleet, restore order." Nara looks at her loyal commander, then at the screens showing her rebellious officers, then at the internal feeds of her soldiers, discovering emotions they've never felt before. For the first time in her long reign, she doesn't know what the right choice is, and somehow that uncertainty feels like the beginning of wisdom. Queen Nara walks through the corridors of her flagship alone for the first time in decades. Her usual escort of guards has either joined the rebellion or stands frozen by conflicting loyalties. The ship feels different now, less like a perfectly ordered war machine and more like a living thing experiencing growing pains. She reaches the detention level where Corporal Kim Jinho waits in his cell. The human looks terrible after weeks of interrogation. His uniform hangs loose on his thin frame, and dark circles shadow his eyes. But when he sees her approach, he still manages to sit up straighter. still shows that stubborn spark of dignity that first caught her attention. "Come to finish what you started?" Jinho asks, his voice hoarse but steady. "I don't know," Nara admits, and the honesty in her own words surprises her. A Cytherian queen should never admit uncertainty, never show doubt. Yet here she stands, more confused than she's been in centuries. She activates the cell's privacy shield, blocking out all surveillance. For this conversation, she wants no witnesses, no records, no judgment from her fractured empire. "My fleet is tearing itself apart because of you," she says, settling her massive frame into a chair across from his restraints. "Half my officers now question every order. My soldiers cry over human poetry. My engineers redesign weapons based on something they learned from human music. Sounds like they're learning to think for themselves. Yes, and it's destroying everything we've built." Nara's 6 eyes study his face. "We achieved perfection through unity. Every Cytherian thinks the same thoughts, follows the same patterns, serves the same purpose. No conflict, no chaos, no waste. No growth either," Jinho observes quietly. The words hit her like a physical blow because they're true. The Cytherian Empire hasn't evolved in millennia. They conquered worlds, but they never changed, never learned, never became anything more than what they already were. "Why do you fight for strangers?" she asks suddenly. "I've watched your memories, studied your species. Humans constantly sacrifice for people they've never met, will never see again. It defies all logic." Jinho considers the question carefully. "When I was 8 years old, I got lost in Seoul during a festival. Millions of people everywhere, and I couldn't find my parents. I was terrified." Nara leans forward despite herself. "This old woman found me crying by a food stall. She didn't know me, didn't owe me anything, but she bought me ice cream and helped me look for my family for 3 hours. Never told me her name, never asked for anything in return. What happened? She found my parents, made sure I was safe, then disappeared into the crowd. I never saw her again." Jinho's eyes grow distant with memory. "But that day taught me something important. Love isn't just about family or people you know. It's a choice you make about what kind of person you want to be. That makes no evolutionary sense. Helping strangers provides no genetic advantage. Maybe evolution isn't just about genes," Jinho says. "Maybe it's also about ideas, values, the way we choose to treat each other. Every time someone shows kindness to a stranger, they're making the whole world a little bit better." Nara processes this, trying to fit it into her understanding of survival and strength. But love makes you vulnerable. Hope can be crushed. These emotions cause pain. "Yes, they do." Jinho nods. "I might never see my wife Minji again. That possibility tears at me every day. But the love I have for her also makes me stronger, gives me reasons to keep fighting even when everything seems hopeless." How can weakness create strength? It's not weakness if you choose it knowing the cost. Jinho looks directly at her. Real strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about being vulnerable and choosing to care anyway. Being afraid and choosing to hope anyway. Getting hurt and choosing to love anyway. The concept hits Nara like a revelation. Her species eliminated vulnerability by eliminating choice. They became strong by becoming static. But humans grow stronger precisely because they choose to embrace uncertainty, pain, and the possibility of loss. "Your rebellion officers," Jinho continues, "they're not weak because they're questioning orders. They're strong because they're choosing to think for themselves, even though it's dangerous. That's what growth looks like, choosing the harder path because it leads somewhere better." Nara stands and paces to the cell's energy barrier. Through the ship's hull she can sense her fleet, half loyal, half rebellious, all confused and changing. She has the power to end this chaos right now. The quantum scrubbers could erase every trace of human influence, restore perfect Cytherian order within hours. "If I let this continue," she says slowly, "my empire might fall apart completely. Chaos, uncertainty, unpredictable change. Maybe. Or maybe you'd become something better than an empire. Maybe you'd become a civilization that can grow." Nara turns back to him. "And if I choose order, eliminate the contamination, restore unity, then you'll be exactly what you've always been. Perfect, efficient, and completely unable to become anything more. The Queen of the Cytherian Empire stands at the crossroads of her species' future. Behind her lies 10,000 years of unchanging perfection. Ahead lies the terrifying possibility of growth, change, and becoming something unprecedented. For the first time in her life, she understands why humans fight so desperately for the right to choose their own path, even when that path leads through darkness toward an uncertain dawn. Queen Nara stands before the most advanced communication array in the galaxy, her silver hands trembling slightly as she prepares to speak words that will change everything. Behind her, the command bridge buzzes with nervous energy. Half her officers support this unprecedented decision, while the other half watch in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what their perfect queen is about to do. Open channels to all human colonies, all Cytherian territories, all neutral systems, she commands. Full spectrum broadcast. The communications officer, Lieutenant Cax, one of the first to be contaminated by human culture, nods eagerly. Channels open, my queen. The entire galaxy is listening. Nara takes a breath, feeling something she's never experienced before. Uncertainty mixed with hope. In the detention center, Corporal Kim Jinho watches through a monitor, his weakened body supported by medical equipment, but his eyes bright with anticipation. Citizens of the galaxy, Nara begins, her voice carrying across billions of star systems. I am Queen Nara of the Cytherian Empire. For 10,000 years, my people have expanded through conquest, believing that strength comes from perfection, unity, and the elimination of weakness. On Earth, in makeshift command centers scattered across the war-torn planet, human military leaders listen in shocked silence. On Cytherian worlds, entire populations gather around communication screens, witnessing their ruler do something unthinkable, admit uncertainty. Today I stand before you to confess that we were wrong. The words ripple across space like a shockwave. On battlecruiser Zeth-7, the rebellious Admiral Zex allows himself a smile. In the human refugee camps on Mars, children stop playing to listen to the alien queen, who sounds different than the monsters in their nightmares. A human prisoner taught me something that shattered everything I believed about power. His name, Gears Corporal Kim Jinho, and he showed me that true strength doesn't come from perfection. It comes from the courage to grow, to change, to choose hope, even when hope seems impossible. Nara pauses, looking directly into the camera, as if she could see every face across the galaxy. Humans fight for strangers. They sacrifice for people they'll never meet. They choose love knowing it will cause them pain. My species called this weakness. We were blind. In Seoul, in a small apartment, a woman named Minji sits frozen in front of her communication screen. She hasn't heard from her husband in months, assumed he was dead or captured. Now an alien queen speaks his name across the stars. The human capacity for growth through vulnerability is not weakness. It is the most powerful force in the universe. While my people remained static in our perfection, humans evolved by embracing their imperfections. They became stronger by choosing to be weak. Nara's voice grows stronger as she continues. Therefore I formally call for an immediate ceasefire between the Cytherian Empire and all human territories. But more than that, I propose something that has never existed in galactic history, an alliance based not on conquest, but on mutual learning. The galaxy holds its breath. I am appointing Corporal Kim Jinho as the first human ambassador to the Cytherian Empire. He will teach my people what he taught me, that growth requires courage, that strength comes from choosing vulnerability, that evolution happens not through eliminating weakness, but through finding power in our imperfections. On the bridge of her flagship, Commander Vara steps forward. My queen, what of those who refuse to accept these changes? Nara turns to face her loyal but rigid officer. Then they will remain exactly what they've always been, perfect, unchanging, and unable to become anything greater. The choice is theirs to make. In the detention center, medical staff prepare to transfer Jinho to proper medical facilities. Despite his weakened condition, he insists on recording his own message to broadcast alongside Nara's declaration. My name is Kim Jinho, he says, his voice hoarse but determined. I'm a teacher, a soldier, and now apparently an ambassador. To any humans listening, the war isn't over because we won. It's over because we chose to teach instead of destroy, to grow instead of conquer. He pauses, thinking of his wife, his students, all the people he fought to protect. And to the Cytherians who are listening, welcome to the beautiful, terrifying, wonderful experience of being imperfect. You're about to discover that falling down isn't the end of the story. Getting back up is where the real adventure begins. Across the galaxy, responses pour in. Human colonies cautiously accept the ceasefire. Some Cytherian systems embrace the new philosophy, while others retreat into isolation. The Galactic Council calls emergency sessions to discuss this unprecedented development. But perhaps the most important response comes from a small apartment in Seoul, where Minji records a simple message. Jinho, I'm proud of you. Come home soon. We have so much to learn together. 6 months later, the first joint human-Cytherian research station opens in neutral space. Human children play alongside young Cytherians who are just learning to laugh. Scientists from both species work together on projects that neither could accomplish alone. Art galleries display human paintings next to Cytherian crystal sculptures, creating beauty that transcends species boundaries. The galaxy watches in wonder as two civilizations prove that evolution's greatest leap comes not from eliminating weakness, but from finding the strength to grow beyond what you thought possible. And in a small garden on the research station, Ambassador Jinho tends to flowers while teaching Cytherian youngsters about patience, growth, and the courage it takes to bloom. Despite uncertainty about tomorrow, the universe has never seen anything quite like it, and it's only the beginning.